You warn it's going to be a tough time this winter, but I want to get a sense from you just how emboldened is the booking, how much capacity will you add, Michael, going into this next quarter?
Good morning, man. It's good to talk to you. We're very emboldened. We've been the airline in Europe to recover quickest since the 1st of July, when the Europeans rolled out the very successful digital COVID certificate. We've been recording 80% plus load factors through the key summer months of July, August and September. As you can see, a dramatic traffic recovery. In the June quarter, we carried only 8 million passengers. In the September quarter, that jumped to 31 million. And we think we'll do somewhere between 31 and 33 million passengers in each of the last 2 quarters as well. And I think what's been really driving that, yes, we've been discounting to encourage people back to flying. Revenues, traffic has doubled, but revenues have grown by 83%. But the real standout for me is that costs have only grown by 63%. We have taken out in Ryanair enormous swathes of cost during COVID-19. And I don't think in my 30 years in this business, I have never been at a point where I'm so excited about the growth opportunity in the next 5 years. We're taking delivery of 210 aircraft from Boeing. 65 of those aircraft will be delivered before next summer. And already we've announced 14 new bases for next summer and over 500 new routes. The demand for low-fare air travel recovery in Europe is, I think, extraordinary is the only word I could give you for it.
OK, I mean, that is bullish rhetoric, Michael, but do you expect to get back above 90% capacity in this next quarter?
Yes. We are already operating at about 90% capacity, slightly lower load factors than pre-COVID. Our load factor pre-COVID was about 91, 92%. We're operating currently at about 82, 83%. But we're out operating, I think, through this winter, we'll be very close. We'll be just over 90% of our pre-COVID capacity. And in the spring, we'll go above 100% with the new aircraft deliveries. Excuse me.
Where are your strongest booking routes going into this Christmas period? I mean, I've been through a number of airports, Michael, some of them at home in Europe, and I just a colossal wave of people around me. So where are your strongest routes?
Generally, I think in the last 3 months, and particularly last week, we had an extraordinary October midterm break. I've never seen volumes largely heading for, people from Ireland, UK, Germany, Scandinavia, getting the last week of sunshine in Portugal, the Canaries, the Balearics, Italy, Greece. As we look forward into Christmas, we see a huge, I think, return of VFR, visiting friends and relatives. So we're seeing very strong forward bookings into the Christmas period. Ireland, UK, Spain, the Canaries, Italian domestics, Spanish domestics. People, I think, who've been locked up for the last 18 months are determined to go home and visit friends and family this Christmas. And we see our forward bookings into the Christmas are stronger than they were this time in 2019. The fares are marginally higher. And that's repeated again for the summer 2022. Our forward bookings into the summer are slightly behind where they were at this time in 2019, but the fares are noticeably higher at this point in the booking cycle.
Okay, so bullish on the outlook and on the pricing. Michael, look, I know that you like to take a bet. So you put here the full year loss stands at for 2022 between 100 to 200 million. OK, that's what you've given us in the statement. Now, I always typically ask you whether is that your worst case scenario, or is there a risk? Is there a risk? Or what does it take for you to get to break even, Michael?
I mean, I think break even is unlikely this year. But, we've got last year during COVID, Manus, we recorded a loss of 850 million. If we get anywhere close to 100, 200 million this year, in essence, with almost no traffic in the first quarter, that's pretty close to break even. Like, it's not a number I would lose any sweat over. What I'm really focused on, though, is next year. I think our traffic recovery this year, we'd originally guided the market at 90 to 100 million. I think we'll go just over 100, probably 103, 104 million passengers. But next year, as long as there's no adverse COVID developments, we jump forward to about 165 million passengers, way ahead of our pre-COVID number, which was 149 million. And I think you're going to see a very strong pricing and profit recovery next year because so much capacity has been taken out of the European system. We've seen the bankruptcies of Thomas Cook, Flybe, Norwegian, Alitalia has reduced its fleet by almost 50%. TAP's reduced the fleet by 30%. There is huge swathes of capacity have disappeared. And Ryanair is one of the few, if not the only airline, putting significant capacity back into the market next year and capitalising on extraordinary growth and recovery deals that are on offer from Europe's airports and Europe's governments as well.
You mentioned COVID there. I'm looking at the UK cases. They're the highest since the start of the year. Have we passed the point of where there's a risk of close down, shut down, Michael? But is there still a risk of sort of temporary halts? Is that the biggest risk to the outline that you've just given to me? Temporary closures, temporary injunctions?
No, I think absolutely. I mean, it's very difficult for someone like me to say we've passed the risk. All I would point to is, yes, there's a spike up in case numbers, which were expected as we enter the autumn period, but it's not translating into a similar flood of hospitalizations or, thankfully, morbidity. But, I worry always about governments doing stupid things. So, we should maybe expect some more disruptions this winter. I hope not. I think the key number in Europe is that, we're looking at 90% plus vaccinations in the adult population. I think most European countries are going to be rolling out booster jabs for everybody over the age of 15 or 18 or whatever it is. Yes, our health services will have to cope with slightly more case numbers, but it appears, with vaccinations, case numbers are not translating into serious illness or our hospital systems being overwhelmed or flooded. I think people are going back flying. We're flying with normal precautions. People are wearing masks on board our aircraft, etc. So we're taking all the safe steps. But I think the biggest, if you like, what we take most for the last 4 or 5 months of this recovery is the people have gone back flying. We're restoring confidence in flying, particularly within European short haul. The long haul recovery will be more delayed, and I think that sets us up in Europe for a very strong recovery next Easter and through the summer of 2022, when we will still have very low costs. We've hedged out our fuel. We're 60% hedged next year at just around $60 a barrel. We've price caps in place to take us up to 80% coverage. So we have low costs, and I think you're going to see us spring back to a very, very strong volume and pricing recovery.
The other line in the news wire this morning is you're considering a delisting from the LSE. What is it that'll take you over the line to delist from the LSE, and what is the advantage to the institutional shareholder if you do that?
I think it's an inevitable consequence of Brexit, Manus. Most of our trading since Brexit has moved towards the Euronext, the stock exchange in Dublin and Brussels. All of our ADRs are traded on the Nasdaq in New York. As trading in our stock in London shrivels, it does make sense that we've a regulatory obligation to ensure that we continue to be majority European owned and controlled. We've taken away the votes from all non-European shareholders, so we're 100% European controlled. As at the first quarter, we were about just over a third EU owned, and we need to move that gradually up towards 50%. I think the two main instruments in that, there will be more forced sales of non-EU holders of ordinary stock and delisting from the London Stock Exchange. We listed first in 1987. I would be sad to leave the LSE listing, but I think it is an inevitability in the next 6 months. Because of the regulatory strictures within which EU airlines operate, we must be EU owned and controlled, and delisting from London is simply a reasonably small club in that, a reasonably small initiative in that strategy.
OK, Michael, need to just close off with a couple very quickly. We've talked sometimes about needing cash, bolstering the balance sheet. But do you need any cash to be right and ready to get your hands on a deal if it comes along? Do you need to raise any more cash?
I don't think so. I mean, we closed the half year with over 4.2 billion in cash. In fact, we had so much cash last week, we repaid the UK CCF loan 5 months early. The UK government loans, I think we're one of the first airlines to repay 5 months early. It would leave us north of 3.5 billion in cash. We were in active negotiations with Boeing up until about 3-4 months ago, and then they came out of nowhere in the worst downturn in history. They announced they were going to raise prices, so those discussions fell over. I would hope to see them restart at some point in time. I'm not sure Boeing are going about the recovery the right way. Putting up prices in post-COVID is not going to sell a lot of aircraft, and that's why so many other Boeing customers have recently announced Airbus orders. I think Boeing need to get their act together. But we have the cash to
Okay,
place an order whenever the pricing is right.
Well, there's no better man to get a deal out of them probably than you. Now, I do not want the PR line here, which is the greenest airline where customers fly with you can reduce their CO2 emissions by up to 50%. There you go. I've given the green line. But we are going into COP, Michael, and you've dealt with green energy and the green agenda for a long time. What is the biggest risk to you as a CEO, or what can you do as a CEO of one of the biggest airlines in Europe to contribute to COP26, Michael?
I think the most meaningful thing we can do, Manus, is invest in new technology. I mean, I am so excited by the Boeing MAX aircraft. We're taking a fleet of 210 aircraft deliveries over the next 5 years. These aircraft carry 4% more passengers. They burn 16% less fuel, and they reduce our noise emissions by 40%. So not alone do we make huge fuel cost savings, but we have dramatically lowered our emissions by encouraging our customers with lower fare to switch to these new technology aircraft. There is no doubt in my mind that what aviation must do in the next decade is invest heavily in new technology, in new engines. There is no other way of, the airlines can't do anything else in the next decade, but new technology, reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, significantly lower our noise emissions, and make flying as green and as clean as we possibly can.